Hey gang, it's Revolt. I'm covering the second of the 3 Red of the 9 dungeons today. I'll be doing Spire the Watcher on Eternity mode. Today's loadout is going to be all Striker Titan, and it's going to be a heavy focus on Thunderlord. Big things you're going to need here are Knockout and Storm's Keep. I'm trying some new things with how I'm presenting information today, largely in text that's going to pop in from the sides. Let me know if that's helpful to you, or if you get any changes to how I'm presenting this info. Alright, so here's our opening encounter. For a loadout, I'm going to be using an auto rifle. It's basically a node activator. I need something to shoot the Cyclops with. I've got a sniper rifle in this case. And also you're going to need something to do boss damage with. I'm using Thunderlord, but whatever works for you is fine. The way this encounter works is that you're going to want to kill the conduit minotaurs that spawn, step inside the puddle they drop, and get the electrician buff. This is going to be a theme through the entire dungeon. Once you have the electrician buff, you can shoot the nodes. You're going to have to start at the beginning node and work your way all the way out to the final node. The one sort of strategy I would give to you here is that if you hold off shooting the final nodes until all 4 of them can be shot at the same time, you won't have to do as many supplicants. The path that I'm running here is the one that I find to be most efficient, but it's not particularly fussy. I would just advise that you stay moving the whole time. So here you'll see that I activate all 4 final nodes at the same time, so that way I'm not dealing with supplicants while I'm trying to make the connections. And then I found that going up here in this corner is the safest place to do DPS from. I'm going to set up here, take out the Cyclops that could get me from the other side. I don't need to worry about the ones directly above me. I'm just going to bring down damage as safely as I can. After the boss is down, we're moving into our first reversal. I'll be fast forwarding through these when they're sort of self-evident on how to do them.
It is not collective. A seraph complex. Peculiar. They were rivals in the Golden Age. This wasn't just a military site, it was a joint research facility, focused on extrasolar colonization efforts. Still divisive, they've been scouring research logs. They were looking for something more than to imprison Rasputin's supplies.
we're moving into the second encounter, which is technically the first encounter and the right of the encounter. We're going to need basically the same loadout as before here, and we're going to do effectively the same thing we did in the first encounter, but this time we're going to be working our way up. After each floor is complete, we're going to have to defeat a mini-boss. We're going to do that 3 times until the encounter is complete. What I consider to be the hardest part of the encounter. Those hydras that you can see right there are a real problem if they're bothering you during the DPS phase, so you should take care of them with a sniper rifle before you start shooting the mini-boss.
Like an open door. It's using the tower's arrays to connect with installations across Seoul. This must be in preparation to imprison the submines. Breaking their connection could end this threat.
Here's our first boss encounter. You're going to continue to want to use an auto rifle as a node activator, a rocket sidearm, or a pinpoint slug shotgun for eye destruction, and then Queen Breaker for DPS. You're going to want to make sure that you've got defibrillating blast, and then also particle reconstruction to do damage. The way this encounter works is that you'll see 4 symbols in the center of the arena that correspond to the 4 pathways on the ground. You're going to want to connect all the nodes except for the final node on each pathway, and then complete the pathways in order shown in the center from top to bottom. If you make any mistakes with that, you can always just shoot the remaining ones, and you'll get a slightly reduced DPS phase, but it won't wipe you. First boss. After this, we've got another traversal that includes more node connections. The wrinkle they've added this time is now you're on a time limit and you have to shoot specific nodes. It's supposed to be a nod to sort of the Wild West theming, quick draw shootout. I don't have too much to tell you other than you already need to practice it. The one trick I have is that there's going to be fans that you have to jump through, and I frequently align myself so that I'm jumping with the fan to give myself a slightly longer window to make it through.
Guardian, what we see here proves my vision is there. Must secure the conflict, convince Its mind directs power to
Alright, so here we are at the final boss. This boss is going to be a test of everything we've done before. It's going to involve the destruction of the Minotaurs, getting the electrician buff, activating the nodes in the order dictated by the center of the arena, and then finally doing DPS. The fight is going to start with killing the Hydras that spawn. Defeating the Hydras will spawn the Minotaurs. Once you have the electrician buff, you're going to want to shoot all 5 panels in the center of the room, and that's going to open the door. Once you've shot all 5 panels, you're going to get those little detain robots in. They're a massive pain in the ass and should be dealt with as quick as you can. You can see the order in the center and then also on the node on the side. So I'm going to start on the right side and then do the left after. You're going to make sure you don't want to finish the second node until you see the boss is in the room. And what's going to happen is the boss is going to be trapped inside the room, you'll microwave it, and then you'll do damage after the microwave. I don't know what happens here. Felt like I had a pixel left and I shouldn't have had that damage phase work out, but it did. In any event, that's Spire the Watcher. As always, let me know if you got any questions in the comments. And check the comments for links to my dim build, the dungeon report, and also my clan server if you're interested in joining. Thanks everyone.